All right guys, Velotric is back with the new Nomad 2, but this is the 2X. Why the X? Well, now we have full suspension. That's right, both front and rear suspension, and not just any suspension, but we actually got air suspension this time in both front and back, and it complete with rebound and dampening adjustments as well. It's also got an industry-leading 560-pound rider payload and a mind-boggling 1,000-pound towing capacity. But you might be wondering, with all of this muscle and weight and size, what kind of range? Well, they say it can get 75 miles on a single charge the way it sits right here. And I put that to the test, so I've got some numbers to share with you. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's do a deep dive on the new Nomad 2X. All right guys, so the new Velotric Nomad 2X, this is a fat tire e-bike. It is UL 2849 certified on the entire bike's components, and then the battery is UL 2271 certified, and they also put it through durability testing, so it's got ISO 4210 durability testing as well. So across the board, safety certifications are in place. It's priced at $23.99. And when it comes to weight, they say this bike weighs 80 pounds. Now, of course, I threw it up on the scale. This one here, complete the way you see it, weighed 88 pounds, and the battery was about 10. So when you take that battery out, the way it sits right now, it's about 77 pounds. Now, in terms of frame colors and configurations, we have a few options. So this is the high step version, but there's also a step through version with a lower step through point if that's the kind of style you're going for. Now, when it comes to fit range, they say between the two frames, you can fit riders that range from 4'11" all the way up to 6'5". So depending on where you are, there's probably something for you there. Now, color-wise, this is the royal blue, but there's also several other colors. We've got a fig red, which is kind of a deep purplish dark red. We've got a sage green. We also have an obsidian black with a cool like glitter metallic flake in it as well. And then they also have a camo option for the outdoorsman out there. And there's some features on this that are going to go hand in hand with that camo paint job if you choose for that. So we'll talk about those stealth modes and things like that in a bit. But really nice setup. We've got reds, greens, purples, blacks, and camo to pick from. And all in all, I think the colors have always looked good on Velotric bikes in general. Now, some geo numbers for this high step frame. So the standover height, so the lowest point that you can stand over the bike is 30.7 inches. The reach up top is 18 inches, but there's always the caveat that it has a pretty wide range adjustable stem, so you can kind of adjust that reach to fit for you. So it could be anywhere from probably 14 to almost 20 inches, depending on how far you slam it forward or pull it back. And then on top of that, we've got a 52-inch wheelbase, or like 51.7 inches, and that's from center axle on the rear wheel to center bolt axle on the front wheel. And then, like I said in the intro, this has an industry-leading 560-pound rider payload. So that's obviously a combination of rear rack weight and rider weight, or however you want to work it. But either way, 560 pounds is the biggest number I've seen to date. And then, like I said, also they've given us a towing capacity rating of 1,000 pounds. Now, for most of us who ride around town and things like that, that's not going to be a big deal. But if you're out there with some property, you're a hunter, you're an outdoorsman, you want to carry a wagon behind you or some sort of trailer for game or gear or work around the property, that's where that 1,000 pounds towing capacity really comes in handy and becomes really useful for a lot of different use cases. Now, when it comes to tires and wheels, we did get 26-inch alloy wheels, and they have a nice offset spoke pattern, and they're wrapped in Kenda e-bike rated puncture protection tires that have an all-terrain tread pattern and a 4-inch wide tread pattern to them, so it's a 26 by 4-inch tire. Now, when it comes to fenders and racks, we got both. We have alloy fenders, front and back, and we have a MIK rear rack that's rated for 120 pounds, which is another pretty high rating I've seen for a rear rack. So really, this bike is built to do a lot of work, and it's got the equipment to handle it. But on top of that, it's just as equally capable in a city scenario, because they fit this with headlights that are adjustable, 500 lumens or 130 lux up front, and then you have a tail light with braking indicator in the back, and it's got turn signals. So really, this bike is equally comfortable downtown as it is down on your property. So really nice setup front to back as far as just the quick overview stats on the Nomad 2X. All right guys, let's talk muscle on the new Velotric Nomad 2X. So back in the rear hub here, we have a 750 watt rear hub motor. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, the Velotric Nomad 2 has the same 750 watt motor, but not all motors are the same. This one peaks at up to 1400 watts, where the last one peaked at 1300, and this one carries a pretty massive 105 Newton meters of torque, where the last one has 90. So we had a nice bump in performance which likely resulted in those bigger numbers in payload and towing capacity. Now this is activated with a torque sensor, but in true Velotric fashion, they give you sensor swap technology, meaning it ships with both a torque and cadence sensor. You can just switch between the two, whichever one you like. You can do it real time while you're riding. It's really easy. It's just kind of a nice feature for those who don't know what they want. This lets you have both, and then you figure it out as you go, because there are good times to use cadence and there are good times to use torque. It just depends on what you're doing with the bike. So having both is really a solid option. Now, Velotric's already famous for the 15 riding modes, which is basically Eco, Trail, and Boost, with 5 levels of PAS within each. But they also added what's called stealth mode this time. Now, stealth mode, I think, is a nod to the outdoorsmen and hunters out there. What it does is when you turn on these bikes, you've automatically got some lighting that turns on, you've got some screen brightness that gets to a certain level, and you've got, as you go faster and faster, you can hear the motor more and more, which happens on any e-bike motor. But in stealth mode, what they did is by activating it, they let you program it in the app, and you can select a speed limit, and you can also have the lights turn off automatically, so front to back, no lighting, and turn the screen down to a certain dimness level that you want. So for those early mornings where you're trying to get it out into a property or to some areas in some woods and you don't want to disrupt all the wildlife out there, they shipped it with a green like LED flashlight, kind of tactical flashlight, and a handlebar mount. So you're able to more quietly, stealthy, move through the woods without disrupting game and alerting other things in the area. Really cool feature. They definitely didn't have to do it, but I think a lot of you guys out there will find that to be really useful. Now, when it comes to the battery, we've got a 48-volt battery, and this one has 16.7 amp hours. It is UL 2271 certified, and it gives us 801.6 watt hours of power. Now, they did give a set of keys with this, so you can take the battery off for off-the-bike charging or storage. I'll show you how that works now. So the bike will ship with a set of keys, and you just simply put it on the drive side here, or the non-drive, excuse me, 180-degree turn, and it will partially release. There's a lever up top there, and you can pull that out, and you have the whole battery here. Now this battery, like I said, is about 10 pounds, 801.6 watt hours, and they say you can get up to 75 miles of range with this battery. Now, that is clarified through their product page that when you get that 75 miles, that's based on eco mode, so the lowest of the three, using PAS1, so the minimum level of assistance. Now, I went ahead and ran a range test on this, but I wanted to do something a little bit more realistic. So I went to trail mode, the middle of the three, and PAS1, and that one kept me about 14 miles an hour, and I still covered 69.2 miles. Now, 69.2 miles on a bike that's almost 90 pounds, 88 pounds, and all that capability, it's just really solid performance, really good programming, and really efficient torque sensor to give that kind of performance. And had I gone to eco mode and PAS1, I very likely would have surpassed their 75-mile range expectation. So very solid performance altogether on the range. And to put this back, you'll simply just reverse the method. So I'll put the bottom in first, pop it in place, and you're good to go. All right, so let's talk components on the new Nomad 2X. So starting in the back with the drivetrain, we've got an 8-speed setup with a Shimano Acera, so a slightly higher trim level of Shimano components within their hierarchy. Up front, we've got a 48-tooth chainring with a double-sided chain guard, and that's mated to an 11 to 40-tooth Shimano rear cassette, giving us about a 440% gear range. Anytime we get a wider gear range like that, it's just more to work with, more to deal with on hills and technical terrain, so more gear range is always a good thing. Now the cranks up there are 170mm alloy cranks, and you get some flat MTB style plastic pedals with reflectors and some traction studs as well. Now when it comes to braking, this is probably my one area of complaint on the bike. It has 2 piston calipers, they're Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, which is good on most bikes. And on this bike, it is sufficient. But I would say it's a little bit slower to stop than I would like to see. And with a bigger payload like this, bigger towing capacity, bigger rider weight that it can carry, I would just say beef up those brakes to 4-piston calipers. But nonetheless, the brakes are sufficient. They do work. It's just a little bit longer stopping time than I have seen. If this same setup was on a bike that weighed maybe 60 pounds, it'd be much more of a better fit. But it's definitely not unsafe or anything like that. It's just something I would say could use the same amount of muscle as everywhere else on the bike. The brakes should probably match it. Now with that said, they did beef it up just a bit. We got a 203mm rotor up front, so a larger rotor in the front, which helps. And then you've got a 180mm rotor in the rear. Now when it comes to the saddle, we have the Velotric Comfort saddle. And this is an obscenely large saddle, but let's be real guys, this is super comfortable. And for most of you guys, that's what you want. You want something comfortable. It's got spring supports, a nice wide sit bone pad to it. Just a very big, plush, comfy saddle. This is not a cycling aggressive position saddle. This is a enjoy your time on the bike, don't worry about what you're sitting on, you'll be comfy. That's exactly what that does. You got an alloy seat post with about 14 inches of adjustability and a quick release lever to adjust this post. Now, suspension, that's kind of the real star of the new Nomad 2X, aside from the extra muscle and features. And that starts back here in the rear with this new area that they built in that houses a DNM shock with 38 millimeter stroke. But that 38 millimeters, because of the pivot points of the rear linkage and suspension, that equates to 80 millimeters of rear travel for this rear wheel. Now, it's also an air suspension shock, so you have air adjustability on it, so you can dial it in based on your body weight, a certain PSI level that will give you the correct amount of sag when you're riding. And that also applies to the front fork. So up front, we've got 120 millimeters of travel, also an air fork with rebound control on the bottom here, a lockout feature on the top right, and on the top left, your air cap, so you can hook up a hose and put air pressure in this. And just like the rear shock, there is a handy little chart. You find your body weight on it, and it tells you roughly how much PSI to put in it. And then that will make your suspension cooperate nicely with you based on how much you weigh. If you've never ridden air suspension compared to the more commonly seen coil suspension that most bikes come with, even the last versions of the Nomad had coil suspensions, it's a very different riding experience. Now, it's not night and day, but it's certainly much more plush, much better feeling, and just feels smoother and like a better suspension. You can just tell it's working better like it should. It's smoother, it's more plush, and it doesn't have any of the slap out you get with a coil spring that's always under a load, and when you come off a jump or a curb or something, it slaps out because of that spring. This being an air suspension with rebound and dampening control allows it to come back out slower and not slap out. It's just a more refined, better performing suspension setup that I think if you've never ridden before, you're really gonna like. Now up here in the cockpit, so starting off with the stem, an adjustable stem, everybody likes having those for the most part because that allows you to kind of play with your reach, figure out what fits you best, how you want to sit. If you pull it back and up, you could be more upright and comfortable. And if you slam it forward, you can be more down and aggressive. Just kind of adjust it to what makes you feel good when you ride. And that's the beauty of the adjustable stem. Now here in the center, we've got all of our cable management. It's a little busy, but most e-bikes are because we have motor cutoff sensors on the brakes, which is a nice safety feature you do want. We have a nice alloy bar. It's got a little bit of a rise and sweep back to it. And then we have ergonomic lock-on grips on both ends with some palm pads to rest your hands on when you're riding. And then we have our PAS controls button over here. And then finally in the middle, we have our Velotric display, which there's some things to talk about on here. So let's take a closer look at the display and the accompanying Velotric app. All right, so this is the home screen on the Velotric display. It's 3.5 inches and it's IPX7 rated, so it can handle all the seasonality, rain, things like that without any issues. Now this has all your basic data on the home screen, so we have a battery bar indicator as well as a numerical percentage. I like having both. Over here is just the Velotric branding. On the left side is going to be the riding modes. I remember I told you about the 3 modes, Eco, Trail, and Boost, with each having 5 levels. So for example, if we change that to Eco mode, we still have 5 levels of assist. Same thing for Trail and same thing for Boost. So technically 15 riding levels, which are all managed right here through the display. Now, this also has the ability to cycle some other data screens. So besides our speed in miles per hour, we have our trip distance and our trip time so far. So about almost 7 hours on this bike. But if you tap the menu button, that will cycle through average speed at 13.3, max speed at almost 30 miles an hour, calories burned 1320, and CO2 saved estimated at 29.5. And then hitting it again takes us back to the basic screen with our odometer and total time on the bike. Now, if we go into some more advanced settings, actually before that, let me just show you the turn signals. So if you hit the left or right directional buttons, you can hear an audible beep and see the directional arrow pad on the screen. And to hit it, to make that go away, you just hit it one more time and it goes away. Now, if you don't like that beeping sound, I like it because I forget it's on. Whereas, you know, when you drive a car with a turn signal, when you go through the turn, the car will automatically turn off the turn signal, but the bikes are not going to do that. So I like having that audible reminder that my turn signal is still on. But if you don't like it, you can simply turn it off in the menus, which I'm going to show you in just a second. Now, it's also got walk mode by holding the minus button. It's also got the headlight you can turn on and off the headlight with holding the plus button. And then it also has a cruise control feature by holding the button on the pad here as well. So you can pick a speed and you can set it and forget it until you activate the brakes. And then that will deactivate it just like a car would. Now, to go into some more advanced settings, you can hold the menu button here and that will take us into the menu, which first things first, you see the stealth mode, which I talked about for the outdoorsmen out there who want to be able to get into their property, get into the you know, backcountry quietly without disrupting any game along the way, that's where you can go in there and make those adjustments. And you see when we hit that button, we can go into stealth mode and just either turn it on or off. But in the app, I'll show you how you can activate the specific settings for it. I'm gonna back out of that. Here you can go into the speed limit. Now this is pretty cool. It's not something many brands do, but I like it on here. You can adjust the speed limit in both pedal assist and the throttle. So you can actually have this throttle to 28 miles an hour, and you can have it pedal assist to 28 miles an hour. But if you want to, you can go in there and you can bring that throttle down by hitting the directional arrow pads. So you can go as low as 12 being the lowest you can set it to, and 28 being the highest you can set it to. And that's the same for the throttle as well. So we'll just back out of this. Now, the next one is sensor swap. This is where you could just easily pick between cadence or torque sensor. And you can also do that while riding the bike without going into here by holding the M button as well. So you don't have to go into the deep menus. You can just do it basically on the control pad while you're riding if you want to. You can also do it in the app. Down here, we can clear our trip data. We can adjust screen brightness on a scale of 1 to 5 or an automatic scale. Based on the little sensor here, it picks up daylight outside and will let you know how bright it is, and it will adjust the screen accordingly. Here is your riding mode where you can choose between eco, boost, and trail. But like I showed you just a second ago, you can also do that by holding this bottom button, by tapping it, excuse me, and that will cycle through eco mode, eco, trail, and boost mode. So I'll back out of this. So now we've got rear light mode. This is where you can change the behavior of the rear tail light and brake light. So I'll show you here. It's in level 1 right now, which means when you're riding, the tail light is on and a steady like illumination level, but when you brake, it gets brighter, or enhanced as they call it here. Level 2 is going to be flashing when you're riding at all times, and then enhanced just gets brighter when you start braking. And then level 3 is going to be steady when you're riding, but when you brake, it gets brighter and flashes. So you can kind of adjust this tail light and brake light combo to behave as you want based on these 3 modes. So let's get out of here and go into our auto light feature. This will allow the headlight to turn on and off based on ambient daylight outside. When it gets dark, it'll kick on automatically. And when it gets bright, it'll kick off automatically. And you can turn that on or leave that on or turn it off if you don't want that feature. So you can do it manually or automatically here. This is the auto power off setting. This is where you can adjust how long it takes the bike to power down once you stop using it. So right now it's set at 5 minutes, but you can go as high as 60 and as low as 5, or turn it off altogether. So we'll back out of that and go to throttle limited. Now here you can limit the throttle. In torque mode, you can have it off or on, or in cadence mode, you can have it off and on, which would be good for those of you in California who need to be able to control whether or not your bike has a throttle usage at all. So in the case of the throttle limiter before, the speed limit, that will just dictate 12 to 28 miles an hour for the throttle, but this will straight up turn off or on the ability to use the throttle altogether. So depending on where you live, you may have a local ordinance or law, and here's where you could make that adjustment. So we'll back out of that and go into cruise control. This is just going to be an on or off setting for cruise control. Oh, we got one more I think we missed. So we'll go down to cruise control and then turn signal click. That was where I was telling you about just a second ago when I used the turn signal and you heard that audible beep. You can go in here and turn that off or on. And then here you're going to connect to app for this QR code, which you pair through your phone into the Velotric app, where there's some more things you can play with. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Velotric app now. All right guys, so this is the home screen on the Velotric app. Now, when you scan that QR code with your phone on the display, it'll automatically populate a picture of your bike and allow you to name it. I just named it the Nomad 2X. Now up top here, it's got our battery percentage reader, our odometer, a picture of the bike, and then if you hit start riding, that'll take you to the GPS ride tracking feature, or you can go into bike settings. We'll do that one first. Bike settings, we're gonna go, you can change the name right here if you wanted to. You can choose between eco, trail, and boost mode if you want to while you're riding, but you can always do that on the control pad as well. You also have your screen brightness adjustment, your speed limit adjustment, so a lot of the features we saw in the menu can also be done in the app. Our auto power off, our auto light feature, cruise control, the throttle limited feature, and the sensor swap, picking between torque and cadence sensors. And you can change between miles per hour and kilometers per hour, as well as my favorite feature for all app connected e-bikes is firmware updates. You go in here, and if there's something they figured out, a bug or a problem with the e-bike, if it doesn't have an app, you can't do anything about that on the go. There's nothing, you can't take it to your local bike shop and say, can you update my bike? It's just not gonna be as easy. But when you have over-the-air updates like this, You just tap the update, it automatically sends it and pairs it to the bike, and you're just done right in your house or in your garage, wherever you want to. It's a really nice feature. Now, if you want to unpair, say you sold the bike or don't want to connect to it, you can unpair there, but we'll back out of that. And we'll go into start riding. Here you can see when you hit that, it automatically gives you a GPS map location of where you are, your battery, your speed, your boost and riding mode, your riding mode and PAS level, and you can pause it. Say you stop to use the restroom or stop at a gas station for a snack, you can pause your ride as well. Now, other than that, that's pretty much the gist of it. You can go into your account settings here and just do some of your basic stuff like data synchronization, get your about information like about from the app version and about Velotric, and you can get help from Velotric if you needed to. Now, aside from that, that's really all it has, but as you can see, it's kind of everything you need, not a lot of extra fluff, but everything is really useful and helps kind of dial in the bike to let it perform the way you want it to. All in all, it's a good app. I've never had any crashes with it. I've never seen it need issues or any buggy problems with it, and it's been a solid companion app for this e-bike. All right, guys, we're out here on the new Nomad 2X. So this is the full suspension version of the popular fat tire bike from Velotric. So when you get on this bike, usually I talk about riding position because of how your body, fits and feels. It's good to know before you buy one. But this has an adjustable stem. So while I say it's kind of a hybrid position, leaning forward into the grips, that's the angle I have the stem at. If I brought the stem a little bit higher up, I could be more upright and relaxed. And if I wanted to slam it down, I could be all the way down into, more of an aggressive riding position. So the beauty of an adjustable stem is it can really change the way the bike feels and what kind of comfort level you want when you ride it. The comfort on this bike is kind of hard to overstate. I think is our usage of that word. It's just really comfortable. So Velotric already has their big comfort saddles, ergonomic grips, adjustable stems, so your body's comfortable in general, but between the tires, on your left, between the tires, the full suspension, and it's air suspension, so it's a very different feel if you've only had coil forks. Soon as I got on this and I hit a curb or a bump or just kind of stood up and squished the suspension like this, you could just feel a very big difference. On your left, it's the kind of difference that if you've only ridden a coil spring, you might not think matters, and I guess in the bigger picture probably doesn't matter. But getting on it, feeling that suspension, just that nice plush, smooth rebound, it's just nice. Coil springs tend to slap in, slap out. This one feels great. I mean, I don't know, it's done well, and going from coil to air, again, seems small, but the dividends pay pretty big as far as comfort, feel, and overall ride quality. Now, on the motor. So this is another fun part of this bike. Oh, real quick on the suspension. So aside from me just saying it feels good, which is probably only somewhat helpful, let's talk about some of the specs. So we got 120 millimeters air spring, you have adjustable rebound, a lockout feature, and a air valve, so you can dial in the PSI of the air spring to match, or to be correctly matched to your body weight. So, a 150-pound rider is going to have a very different PSI in the spring, in the fork, than a 250-pound person. Just different body weights need different rebound and sag adjustments in the fork. The good news is, all that sounds really technical, but it just means put a bike pump on it or a shock pump on it and pump it up to your body weight or your recommended PSI based on your body weight, which there's a little graph on the fork that will tell you. And then same on the rear shock. It's also an air shock with a PSI valve. And again, feels really good. These aren't like super high-end like Fox or Rock shocks, anything like that. But there's a nice feel difference that if you've never ridden it, you'll know it when you feel it. Sorry if I'm sniveling, I got a little bit of a cold this week. All right, so let's talk about the motor, because there's a lot going on there too. So the basic stats are, we have the 750 watt rear hub motor. It peaks at 1400 watts and has an awesome 105 Newton meters of torque. Now, in the past, when I get bikes with big numbers, the feeling I get when I ride them is usually kind of predictable, right? So you're gonna have more jumpy power, more punch off the line, quicker acceleration, all those things you expect when you see bigger numbers. This was a bit of an anomaly. It's powerful, it can get up anything. It's got 28 mile an hour speeds on throttle and pedal assist. On your left. But the beauty of it is, they were very clever with the programming to where they didn't make it like a rocket off the line. So I think that's really by design, because it's plenty powerful, has no problem getting up to speed. It just doesn't launch off the line, and I think that's good. It's going to keep the battery running well. It's probably going to be better on the components. It's just more like the strength is there, and it's there when you want it. You never have to ask. It's just always ready, but it's never in your face pushing you over with power. On your left. Thank you, sir. So I really like the motor on this. So 105 Newton meters and 1400 peaking watts is already awesome. And then when you kind of reserve that programming to keep the muscle there, but not, lose it all in the first sprint, all of its battery, I think that's a really good idea. Hopefully that's conveyed well. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but basically the power is exactly what you want, when you want it. It's just not going to be like a street bike off the line. It's not going to launch off the line. It's reserved, but it's powerful. So I think that fits the theme of the utilitarian fat bike design. Can go anywhere, haul anything, and with 1,000 pounds towing, 560 pound payload, those are the biggest numbers we've seen in the industry. And Velotric backs up with some testing data, so it's pretty unique, and I think they did a really good job there. All right, let's hold throttle on this 9% grade here. And so we're just accelerating right up it. And I saw about 1 mile an hour loss of speed, which might be the lowest I've seen there yet. But let's go into the neighborhood here and hit the 5 to 7% grade, but it's a lot more sustained over about a quarter mile. And it kind of gives you a better idea of how the bike performs on a hill. That one was quick, but that 9% punch to it shows you how the motor feels, or how the motor handles it. But this longer one just gives you a better idea in general. But I will say, out of all the bikes I put up that little 9% grade, I mean, that just launched up it. It had no problems at all. And that was right after I was saying it wasn't a very punchy motor. So I guess in theory it is. It's just not unnecessarily punchy. Morning. All right, so I'm gonna just throttle this all the way up this hill. It goes for about a quarter mile. So we're accelerating up. No problem accelerating, 16, 17, 18. I'm not even a PS5, there we go. And so yeah, we're just accelerating all the way up this hill. Not slowing at all, not holding speed. 23 miles an hour, 24 miles an hour. So it looks like it's gonna hold about 23 on throttle only. Now if I pedal, now we're back to 23, 24, 25. So we're basically accelerating uphill because of the torque sensor and the pedal assist. And we're at the top of the hill. So really no trouble at all, frankly, basically accelerating up the whole time. Most bikes, if you watch my other videos, when we get to these hills, they generally will have a little 2 to 3, sometimes even more mile an hour drop on those hills, but this one, it held at one point. On the steeper climb, it did drop by 1 mile an hour, but that's the lowest I've seen. So I would say this is up there with some of the stronger motors I've tested. I mean, 105 Newton meters. So that beeping you hear is my turn signal indicator, because I was on a city street turning. So I'll turn that off by tapping the turn signal again. I really love turn signals on these bikes. That means I can pretty much just as easily take a big fat tire with 105 Newton meters off-road and go have fun, and then come back into town. I got turn signals, headlights, rear racks. I can do anything from commuting to heading to the store. So I think it's a really nice setup. So I'll kick that on one more time. Got a car coming here. Now you can turn that beep off. I like it because I forget it's on sometimes. All right, we're clear. And we're off. So the brakes on this is an area that I will give a little critique. So braking, we've got basically roughly 80-pound bike with a 560-pound payload that can travel nearly 30 miles an hour. I always will ask brands to put out 4-piston calipers and larger rotors just to accommodate a beefier payload, beefier bike, a beefier rider, you know, just a beefier mass rolling down the road. In this case, they did a little bit. So we've got 2-piston calipers, but we've got a 203 rotor up front, so a larger rotor than normal on the front tire is good. Typically you see that on mountain bikes where you want more controlled braking and descending. So it's good to see that. I would just prefer to see 4-piston brakes. But let's give these a little brake test here. We're going 21 and a half miles an hour, and I'll just hit the brakes in 3, 2, 1. So a little bit of tire lock up and a little, I think it's a little slow to stop. It's not dangerous. It's not, it's nothing that you feel like, oh, the brakes aren't working. It's not like that at all. I don't want to overstate that. I just want to say it's, when you stop as many e-bikes as I have at this point, you can kind of feel when they stop quickly, and you can feel when they take a little bit longer time to stop. And this one just takes a little bit longer time. But that's over 20 miles an hour. I'm a 180-pound rider. You know, take that for what it's worth. The good news is, if it bothered you, getting 4-piston calipers and having your local bike shop put them on is probably not that big of a deal. Let's get back on this trail here. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about this bike. This full suspension is really done well. It rides nice, it's smooth, it's powerful, it's got crazy payload and towing capacity. Just a really fun bike by Velotric, who continues to kind of just get better each round. I mean, Velotric's really done a good job over the last couple of years, and each bike gets better. It's been fun. Now, a couple riding mode things on here. So we have a torque sensor or a cadence sensor. I love having the option of both. Most people don't know what they want on their first e-bike, or they've read one's better than the other and they're not sure. The thing is they both have advantages and they both have disadvantages. A torque sensor is going to be really nice for just smooth, natural pedaling power. But a cadence sensor is going to be really nice for just giving you instantaneous power right off the line, regardless of how fast or hard you're pedaling. So maybe you're, you know, attaching a trailer to this in the backcountry and you're going to haul an elk out, or you're going to do it around your farm and have a bunch of work. You got to dolly up on the back and load it up and haul it around the farm. Well, this is a bike that you're not going to worry about pedaling sensation and refined torque sensors. You just need to go with the load you have. And I think that's where this stuff gets really nice, and it's nice to have that flexibility. Another feature that they offer on this, not offer, it just comes with it, is the riding mode. So you can see we're in boost, and if I tap this, we go to eco. If I tap it again, we go to trail. And then each one of those, so eco being the lowest, trail being the middle, and boost being the highest, each one has 5 levels of pedal assist. So you really get like 15 unique riding modes to kind of dial in the way you like it. Or like some people, just leave it in trail, the middle, or boost, or eco, and just work with those only. So it's really neat to have that kind of flexibility. They call it sensor swap technology. I think they were the first I saw to do it. I've seen another brand do it since, and I just think it's a really cool feature that more brands should follow suit. All in all, I wish I had time to take this out to take you guys with me right now, off-road, but I've got to get this charged so I can do a range test on it. Kind of had a short turnaround with this bike, but it's been really fun to ride. It's equally as fun off-road or on-road as a commuter. Actually, there's some off-road stuff coming up. It's not too gnarly, but just let you see how the bike performs. There we go. It's just so smooth off-road, guys. That full suspension, air springs, it is so nice. Let's turn around. I'm using throttle only here just to kind of play in the dirt, not screw it up with my pedaling. It's also extremely quiet. I mean, we're just jamming off on gravel, 25 miles an hour, just no issues at all. See, that braking was nice, so don't take my braking comments to heart too hard. They're just more of a want than a need for 4 pistons. The braking's fine. All right, so let's go back and put it up on a stand and talk about this from a mechanic standpoint. There's some things to talk about with this new frame design and the forks. So let's go back and take a look at that, and we'll wrap this up. All right, guys, so let's talk about the ownership of the Nomad 2X from kind of a ownership perspective. So owning it, maintaining it, the longevity of it, the choices they made when they built it, and how those equate to adding to or taking away from the longevity of the bike. Now, I'm gonna start with some things that I like, because there's a lot to like about this bike, and there's only a few things I'm gonna harp on and the dislikes, but we'll start with the likes. Now, we had a couple bikes released over the past few months, and that didn't come with any kind of chain slap protection. Now, it could be as easy as a thin protective film that goes on this chainstay to protect it from the chain slap. But in this case, they used a beefed up rubber one with some raised, beefy, like it's gonna take a beating for a while without ever penetrating the protective film or the paint and getting into that raw aluminum. So smart design choice. It may cost them a couple pennies, but it goes a long way in saving the chainstays and the look of frame of your bike. Now, another thing that I thought was really important, when I saw the air suspension in the rear, at first I was obviously happy, but I became immediately a little bit concerned about whether or not the cables that travel through here, the power cables, the motor cables, things like that, how they would potentially interfere with the pivot points and linkage on the frame. When you're going off-road and that back tire is going up and down, the last thing you want is a cable getting pinched in there or caught up in there. But I'm happy to say they built literally like its own little proprietary channel. You can't see it on camera, but it's right through here. Maybe we'll be able to get a shot and put it on the screen. But it shows just a protective channel that houses just those cables and is out of the way of the rest of the linkage, meaning you can go out there, go off-road, have fun, and not be constantly concerned that you're gonna pinch some cable or wire. And while that may seem like an easy no-brainer thing to do, doesn't always happen, but in this case, they did it. And then on the rear rack. So we normally have rear racks, that's nothing new, and we normally have them mounted in this configuration, but this one takes it a step further. So usually we'll see mounting points here, which is very typical, and then often we see a single mounting point into the fender, but let's be real, that doesn't do a lot for forward and aft security of a rear rack, especially under load, dynamic load that's gonna be moving and shaking while you're riding. But what they did is, so they added them here, they added them on the fender, but then they also added a whole second set up here. So that's gonna protect this from ever rocking back and forth or just manipulating itself under load without you wanting it to. Smart choice, and it's gonna go a long way in protecting your gear and just how the bike performs when you're riding it. Now, some small things I'll harp on. I already did one, which was the braking. The braking is sufficient, it works, it is safe. However, I've ridden a lot of bikes at this point, and I think when you get this high weight of e-bike, with this much muscle, who can carry this much weight, I just prefer to see it bumped up to a 4-piston caliper for some really aggressive braking to handle anything under any situation. But like I said, it is fine the way it is. That's just more of a personal gripe that I'd like to see implemented the next time around. Now on top of that, we also have the fenders. So it's nice to have fenders, no problem with that. The problem for me is these are alloy fenders. Nothing wrong with alloy fenders in broader terms, but they tend to bend easier, rattle more, and just be a bit more of a nuisance when you own the bike. Again, this is probably more my personal griping about it, but nonetheless, a plastic fender I think would just be lighter, probably cheaper, I don't know, I'm only guessing there, and definitely quieter. And if you bump it or bang it into something, a plastic one is not probably going to bend. It's just gonna kind of absorb it and pop back out. So I'd prefer to see plastic fenders on an off-road bike, but nonetheless, I don't have a lot of gripes on this bike because overall, they just did pretty good on this. So if you guys have any other questions, just drop them down below and I will get to those as well. All right guys, so there you go, the new Nomad 2X from Velotric, a full suspension fat tire bike. I'd say done right. We've got air suspension with rebound and dampening adjustments. We've got a crazy 560-pound rider payload, towing capacity at 1,000 pounds, and I was even able to cover 70 miles in trail mode, not even in eco mode. So really, this is a bike that can do a little bit of anything no matter where you go, especially when you consider the commuter perks like front to back lighting and turn signals. There's just a lot to work with here, and priced at $23.99 seems pretty approachable and fair these days. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If I missed anything about this bike that you would like to know, just simply leave a comment and I will figure it out and get back to you in the comment section. And until the next review comes out, we'll see you guys out on the trail.